Assalamu alaikum students. Today the topic of my lecture is types of communication. Whether we communicate with others formally or informally, we have to adopt different modes of communication. So what are these modes and types of communication? I will discuss. Language is a system of symbols which we use for sharing our experience with others. The types of communication are based on communication channels. There are types of communication, verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Now let's see what are the methods and ways of verbal communication. Most of our communication is done by using language. We speak and write whenever we have to convey information and ideas, to discuss, to motivate, to appreciate, or to warn, reprimand, complain, and so on. We may do any of these things through oral or in written form. The skills of verbal communication are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And most of our formal education focuses on writing and reading. But it has been found by research studies that most of our communication time is spent roughly in the following proportion. We spend most of our time in writing, almost 9%, 60% in reading, 30% in speaking, and 45% in listening. So most of our time is spent in listening. Now, what is verbal communication? Verbal communication refers to the form of communication in which message is transmitted verbally. Verbal communication is done by words, mouth, or a piece of writing. It can be oral and written. And objective of every communication is to have people understood what we are trying to say. Now, let's discuss oral communication. In oral communication, just spoken words are used. It includes face-to-face and telephonic conversation, interviews, meetings, conferences, presentations, negotiations, video, radio, and television. This type of communication is influenced by volume, speed, and clarity of speaking. As regards the written communication is concerned, it is done through letters, reports, memos, notices. And all formal communication usually done is in written form. Now let's discuss what is non-verbal communication. The second type of communication is called non-verbal communication, and it's the communication which is done through signs and symbols. Non-verbal communication can go without verbal communication, but verbal cannot go without non-verbal communication. And it is mostly involuntarily and unconscious and difficult to control. It may sometimes reveal the truth which the speaker or writer is hiding behind the words. And it is said that non-verbal communication speaks louder than words. So we can say that sometimes non-verbal communication becomes more effective than the verbal communication. Now let's see how non-verbal communication is done. This communication is done through kinesics. Kinesics is called body language. It is also done through haptics, prosmics, chronemics, sign language, paralanguage, environment, silence, and artifact. So how non-verbal communication is done through kinesics? Let's see. Kinesics is the study of how we use body movement and facial expressions. We interpret a great deal of meaning through body movement, facial expressions, and eye contact. Many people believe that they can easily interpret the meanings of body movements and facial expressions in others. The reality is it is almost impossible to determine an exact meaning for gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact. Even so, we rely a great deal on kinesics to interpret and express meaning. We know that kinesics can communicate liking, social status, and even relational responsiveness. Facial expressions are a primary method of sharing emotions and feelings. Actually, body language includes the following elements: facial expression, gestures and postures, eye contact, and personal appearance. Now, how facial expression help in conveying our message? Let's see. Face is the index of mind. Think how much information can be conveyed with a smile or a frown. By a facial expression, we can show or we can understand happiness, sadness, anger, and fear, and much more. As regards the gestures are concerned, they constitute non-verbal communication, which complement verbal modes of communication. They have a defining impact on how one receives words and can make or break the impact of the spoken word. Gestures include any intentional or unintentional body movement made during the course of a conversation. In a formal scenario, such as interviews, gestures have a big role to play. Because the candidates in their nervousness don't pay attention to the way their body reacts. This exposes them to the critical eyes of the people on the other side and enables them to form certain impressions about the candidates. For instance, pointing your fingers in a formal setup is considered rude. In non-verbal communication, posture is the way we hold ourselves, the way we stand or sit. It indicates something about our feelings and thoughts, attitudes, and health. Stiff posture shows tension. Comfortably hanging back conveys a relaxed mood. Eagerly leaning forward shows the listener's interest. Posture can indicate a disregard or disrespect for others. Polite and well-bred persons are usually careful of how they stand or sit in the presence of visitors and in formal situations. Graceful posture is a great asset, especially in any formal setup. There are 4 types of postures that can be clearly identified. First of all, forward lean indicates attentiveness and interest. Drawing back and turning away expresses a negative or refusing. Expansion suggests proud, conceited, and arrogant person. Forward-leaning body, bowed head, and drooping shoulders usually convey depressed, downcast, and dejected. Eye contact also help in non-verbal communication, and eye movement is a key part of facial expression, directing others' attention or showing surprise or happiness and other emotional displays. Eye contact between speaker and listener is necessary for indicating that both are interested in the communication. While making an oral presentation, it is important to create rapport with the audience. The comfort level for eye contact is 3 seconds. If eye contact is held longer than 3 seconds, it can cause discomfort to other person. It's commonly believed that avoiding eye contact indicates that the speaker is lying. Persons who lack self-confidence also generally avoid eye contact. However, the rules and customs of culture influence how people use their eye contact. Several African and Asian cultures consider it impertinent for younger persons to look at elders directly in the eye. Now let's see how artifacts help in non-verbal communication. Actually, artifacts are physical objects such as clothing, homes, and cause that indicate to a person's personal and social beliefs and habits. Messages are thus conveyed in a non-verbal manner. One of the first judgment people make when they see an individual, whether it be stranger or friend, is based on that person's clothing. Accurate or not, these inferences affect how people view and react to others. Clothing can communicate many ideas, including social class, attitudes, either it's a conservative, liberal, or moderate, style, creativity, and age. Non-verbal communication is also done through haptics. It's the study of touch. All this indicates attack modes. Someone's aggressively conveying they are looking to get you or prove a point. In this line of attack, someone can also reach out and grab someone by the arms to shock them into attention. We typically consider physical touch in a positive and personal light. If someone is sitting at their desk crying, someone's likely to put a hand on their shoulder and ask them what's wrong. These signs of touch are meant to be comforting while forging a connection. Someone can also give a light touch to a co-worker's arm as they say thanks. In every instance, bad or good, touch is designed to strengthen the message being sent. Now let's see what is Proxemics in non-verbal communication. Actually, it's a space distancing. To communicate while keeping distance is called Proxemics. It's the study of how our use of space influences the ways we relate with others. Intimate space consists of space that ranges from touch to 18 inches. We use intimate space with those whom we are close, like family members, close friends, and intimate partners. Intimate space is also the context for physical fighting and violence. Personal space ranges from 18 inches to 4 feet and is reserved for most conversations with non-intimate people. Social space extends from 4 to 12 feet and is used for small groups interactions such as sitting around a dinner table and with others or a group meeting. We use space to regulate our verbal communication. Now, next element in non-verbal communication is called chronemics. It means time language. A call at 2 a.m. indicates some kind of emergency. You reach in a party on time shows you are punctual. It's basically the study of how people use time. Are you someone who is always early or on time? Or are you someone who arrives late to most events? Think about the person you know who is most frequently late. How do you describe that person based on their use of time? Now think about someone else who is always on time. Obviously, he would be considered a very punctual person. How do you describe that person? Is there a difference? If so, these differences are probably based on their use of time. In the United States, people place high value on being on time and respond more positively to people who are punctual. But in many Arab and Asian countries, time is used more loosely, and punctuality is not necessarily a goal to achieve. You may have heard the expression Indian time, which refers to the perception of time that is circular and flexible. We may communicate non-verbally through sign language. A sign language is any means of communication through bodily movements, especially of the hands and arms, used when spoken communication is impossible or not desirable. In linguistic terms, sign languages are as rich and complex as any oral language, but they are not real languages. It's a conventional communication which is a part of non-verbal communication. There are certain types of sign language, and these are 7 types. Number 1, sign language for the deaf, sign language for people who are deaf and blind, sign language for children and adults with special needs, sign language for babies a most fabulous way to understand and communicate with hearing baby before he or she can speak. Sign language for communicating with animals, for example dogs and dolphins. Home sign is not a full language, but it is used for a particular family where a deaf child does not have contact with other deaf children and is not educated in sign. Village sign language is a local language is used both by the deaf and by a significant portion of the hearing community who have deaf family and friends. Now let's discuss what is paralanguage and how we communicate non-verbally through a paralanguage. It is the term we use to describe vocal qualities such as pitch, the tone, the volume, tempo, rhythm, articulation, resonance, nasality, and even the accent of the speaker, collectively known as paralanguage. We can understand mood and the situation by paralanguage expressions. Environment. Our environment are non-verbal acts through our use of spaces we occupy, like our homes, rooms, cars, or offices. We also communicate non-verbally through different types of environment. Our environment are non-verbal acts through our use of spaces we occupy, like our homes, rooms, cars, or offices. Just think of your home, room, automobile, or office space. What meanings can others perceive about you from these spaces? What meanings are you trying to send by how you keep them? Think about spaces you use frequently and non-verbal meanings they have for you. Most educational institutions intentionally paint classrooms in dull colors. Why? Because dull colors on walls have a calming effect, theoretically keeping students from being distracted by bright colors and excessive stimuli. The bright colors generate an unbeat environment, while the hard plastic seats are just uncomfortable enough to keep patrons from staying too long. Remember, because fast food restaurant also use bright colors in order to attract the attention of the customers. People and cultures place different emphasis on the use of space as a way to communicate non-verbally. Now, silence can also play an important role in non-verbal communication. It's because when we do not use words or utterances to convey meanings, have you experienced the silent treatment from someone? What meanings did you take from that person's silence? Silence may be in form of yes or no. Silence is powerful use because the person using silence may be refusing to engage in communication with you. Likewise, we can use silence to regulate the flow of our conversations. And it has a variety of meanings, and as with other types of non-verbal communication, context plays an important role for interpreting the meaning of silence. Now let's see how colors contribute in non-verbal communication. Color is an important and powerful means of communication. Matters of life and death, as in traffic signals, are conveyed by colors. It's also used for classification and identification of different products and materials in industries. The cosmetic industry uses colors to make products attractive as well as to classify and differentiate types. Carbon copies of documents are on different colored paper to distinguish copies meant for different departments. Teams have color in their uniform to identify their members. Countries have their colors on their flag. Colors give gives an added dimension to maps, charts, and graphs, and makes it possible to convey a greater amount of information within the same visual graphic representation. And color is also used in clothing, design, decoration, and to enliven a dull environment. So colors are associated with different moods and feelings, like white with peace and purity, red with danger, and black with death and sorrow. Smile is a universal gesture. It's understood by everyone, and it's generally unmistakable and clears the atmosphere. It is believed to release chemicals which create feelings of happiness. Here is a quotation from an unknown author. A smile costs nothing but gives much. It enriches those who receive. It takes only a moment, but the memory of it may last forever. But in certain places, a smile creates happiness in the home, fosters good will in business, and enhances friendship. But it can also be a useful non-committal gesture when it is better to be silent. And beware of an involuntary smile, either on your own face or on the other's face. It could be sarcasm. It cannot be conducive to good relationships as well. Thank you.